Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Pratibhajalam Bhakam Namakaya Nekrim Yatkapadam Vande Shri Vande. Welcome back to this Nectar of Devotion sessions. And yesterday we discussed about Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, and today we will attempt to discuss on Bhava Bhakti. Okay. So as we discussed yesterday, these stages of devotional service are beyond our capacity to experience or relish at this point. We can relate to this Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti because this is what we are performing currently now. But Raganuga Sadhana and from then on Bhava and Prema is, we can try to understand, but we will see how it goes. So it's not within our experience at this point, at least. Correct? So Bhava Bhakti, in the last wave of this Eastern division, there are 4 waves within this Eastern division. There are 4 divisions within Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu: Eastern, Southern, Western, and Northern. In Eastern division, we have these 4 waves. First wave speaks about Samanya Bhakti, devotional service in general. Second wave speaks about Sadhana Bhakti, which includes Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Third wave speaks about Bhava Bhakti, and fourth wave speaks about Prema Bhakti. Okay, so yesterday I mentioned that of the 309 verse, 279 are for Sadhana and rest are for Bhava, for Raganuga, Bhava and Prema, but that's actually not correct. Rest of the 309 verses in the first wave, we have only Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti is a separate wave in itself, and that has around 61 verses, and Prema Bhakti has around 26 verses like this. Okay. So this is the divisions of this chapter. We will try to discuss 17 and 18 today, and tomorrow we'll do 19. So first we will define what is Bhava Bhakti, and just to bring to perspective what we're discussing here, we have actually jumped to a very high level of devotional service. In the 4th wave of this division, there is a definition that comes about the stages of devotional service. Adav Shraddha, Tatha Sadhu Sangha, Tatha Bhajana Kriya, like this. So there is Shraddha, first is faith, then there is Sadhu Sangha, that's the second stage, then Bhajana Kriya. After which there is Anartha Nivriti, then Nishtha, then Ruchi, then Asakti. Then comes Bhava, and then comes Prema. So of the 9 steps of coming to pure devotional service or coming to the level of pure love of God, we are discussing about the 8th step. Okay, whereas most of us, generally speaking, are still in the stage of Bhajana Kriya and attempting to do Anartha Nivriti. Okay, so we have jumped forward from after Anartha Nivriti to Nishtha, from Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, and we have jumped all these stages and trying to understand Bhava Bhakti. So some things we'll be able to understand, some things if we are not able to understand, just we'll have some information with us. So first we will discuss about the definition of Bhava Bhakti and what causes Bhava Bhakti. So there are 2 causes which Rupa Goswami mentions. It can come from sadhana, which can be Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti as well as Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, or else it can manifest directly by the mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of his pure devotees. And within the mercy of Krishna, by the Lord's speaking to a person, he might get bhava. Just by glancing at the Lord and by the good wishes of the Lord, one can attain the mercy of Krishna and come to the stage of Bhava Bhakti, or by the mercy of pure devotee. And just like what we have discussed till now, for all these things, Sri Rupa Goswami will give references from Shastra that this is how one can attain to Bhava Bhakti. Okay. So Bhava. It's Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhag, Ruchibhish Chitta Marshnyakrit Aso Bhava Uchyate. Srila Prabhupada writes, by the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage, beyond the material modes of nature. Means by practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, or regulated devotional service also means Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So by executing Sadhana Bhakti, one is elevated onto the transcendental stage, beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun, from his pure heart, there is diffusion of ecstatic love which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. We will encounter this term rati when we are discussing about bhava, and Acharyas explain that rati is the same as bhava, and rati means intense attachment for Krishna. So when we cross these stages by executing of regulated devotional service, we are elevated onto the transcendental stage. The heart becomes illuminated like the sun. We will discuss this, what it means. And from his pure heart, there is diffusion of ecstatic love. One more thing that we should understand is that sadhana bhakti does not create bhava bhakti. I think we discussed this point before as well in these sessions. Pure love for God already exists within the heart of a devotee. It is just that it is revealed by the process of sadhana bhakti. Okay, so there's nothing new that is being acquired. So bhava bhakti actually exists within our heart. Prema bhakti is there within the heart. It's just a question of purification. It's just a question of sincerely following the process of sadhana bhakti, pure devotional service. So it's not something which we have to acquire, and we should not think that it's something which is completely unrelated to us. Bhava bhakti and prema bhakti is not unrelated to us. It's just that we have forgotten that we possess it, because living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha. So Ananda is there in Krishna. It's inherent. It's his nature. And being part and parcels of Krishna, we also have that inherent nature to enjoy bliss in connection with Krishna. So Bhava and Prema is already there within the heart. It's just that it's not manifested. It has been suppressed by our material contamination. So Sadhana Bhakti is the process to invoke, or to, basically invoke, or basically to ensure that Bhava Bhakti, not ensure, but to invoke is a good word. Yes. So to invoke Bhava Bhakti within our heart. So only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. So this attachment is then revealed. We're already attached to Krishna, but we have forgotten that out of illusion. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. So spontaneity is there. Okay, when we were discussing Raganuga Bhakti yesterday, we spoke about spontaneity. So Bhava Bhakti means spontaneity is there, obviously, because there's an intense ecstatic love. And love means there is reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee. So the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttamadhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections. Correct? He has no agitation from material affection. At the stage of bhava, he is not agitated because of material sense objects, and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. To clarify in the previous chapters, the symptoms of devotional service are explained along with the instructions as to how we may execute devotional service with our present senses and gradually rise to the platform of ecstasy in spontaneous love. So some sections within our society or within the God devotional society say that to achieve bhava, to achieve to the stage of bhava and prema, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is not enough, or Vaidhi sadhana bhakti will not take us to Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, which is true to some extent, because Srila Prabhupada also discussed this yesterday. By performing Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, one can come to the level of bhava and prema, but one cannot go to Goloka Vrindavan, to Krishna's planet. So sadhana bhakti does lead to bhava and prema, but to the expansions of Krishna, to the Narayana forms of the Lord. where also there is bhava and prema. But if one has to enter into Krishna's planet, to Golok Vrindavan, one has to follow this Raganuga sadhana. From Raganuga sadhana, when one comes to the level of bhava and prema, then he is eligible to enter into Goloka Vrindavan. But Vaidhi sadhana bhakti can also would lead to bhava and prema. So that's understood. So it's not that one is stuck with Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and does not lead to bhava and prema. So this is a misconception that and by Vaidhi sadhana bhakti one can come to go to Dwaraka as well and be one of the queens of Krishna. So by performing Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, it is possible. We discussed that yesterday while discussing Raganuga sadhana, that if one has conjugal or one who desires conjugal love with Krishna, but then he does not follow in the footsteps of the gopis, means he's not following the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas, he will be elevated to the position of queens at Dwaraka. Correct? So by Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, one can go till Dwaraka, but only through Raganuga sadhana one can reach the highest planet, which is Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, but one thing that we should be very clear is that Vaidhi sadhana bhakti does lead to the spiritual world. It is not that something new or something more is required or we are missing out on something. So Srila Prabhupada's presentation is very clear. Okay, depending upon, so first everybody, whoever or whatever our desire may be, we might think or we might imagine that we want to go here and there. But the goal, as we discussed about pure devotional service, it's not about our own liberation, which planet we want to go. It is about rendering service to Krishna, pure devotional service without any motivation of jnana and karma, and it should be anyabhilashita shunyam. So initially during Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, we should perform our devotional service without any other desires. Okay. And once that happens, then automatically the heart becomes purified, obviously. And then these desires appear. We discussed yesterday also, the greed is also automatically appears. So with purification, our Swarupa is revealed. And based on that, one takes up either Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti with consultation from spiritual master, or if he wants to render service to the Lord in other of his expansions, other of his, like Lord Ramachandra or Krishna in Dwaraka, like this, then by performing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti itself, he can go and achieve the stage of Bhava and Prema. Okay, so there's no limitations in any of these processes of pure devotional service. The two kinds of devotional service, and there are two kinds of devotional service, namely devotional service through regulative principles and through spontaneous love were discussed. Okay, so within these two kind of devotional service through regulative principles is our sadhana bhakti. Through spontaneous love is our prema. Okay, it's on the stage of prema, the highest love of Godhead. Within the stage of regulative principles of devotional service, there are two divisions, namely executive and effective. This effective portion of devotional service is called bhava or ecstasy. Okay, one thing which you would understand is we should understand is when we're discussing anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karma denavartam, anukulyana Krishna anushilanam. So when we're discussing this topic of anushilanam, we spoke about these two things, cheshta rupa and bhava rupa. Correct? I told you that we will discuss this when we come to 17th chapter. There are these two things, cheshta rupa, where an endeavor is being made to perform a devotional service, and bhava rupa is when it is spontaneous. The affection or the rendering of devotional service is spontaneous, it directly comes from the heart of the devotee. So when Srila Prabhupada writes that within the stage of regulative principles of devotional service, he is referring here to Anushilanam. Because Anushilanam, the definition of Anushilanam itself means that we have to follow. It's either continuous, Anushilanam means to make endeavor to perform devotional service, continuously performing devotional service and performing devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master and with reference to the scriptures. So that was the definition of Anushilanam, if you remember what we discussed. So that is, Prabhupada writes that as regulative principles of devotional service here. So this regulative principles of devotional service does not mean sadhana bhakti, but it's referring to Anushilanam. And within Anushilanam, there is executive and effective. Executive is cheshta rupa, where endeavor is being done, where devotional service is being executed. And the effect of executing this cheshta rupa bhakti is that one attains bhava for the Lord. One attains emotions, transcendental feelings for the Lord, which is spontaneous. So this effective portion of devotional service is called bhava or ecstasy. which also means that Cheshta Rupa, which is equivalent to Sadhana Bhakti, leads one to Bhava Bhakti. So one is executive and then it is effective. Okay. So Sri Jiva Goswami, he divides the cultivation of devotion into two aspects. The activity itself, Cheshta, Pravritti and Nivritti, with the body, words and mind, and then 64 Angas of Bhakti. So again, you should remember that when we are discussing 64 Angas of devotional service, the first 20 is Pravritti and Nivritti, and the rest 44 are other activities of devotional service. So that is Cheshta Rupa, which means our Sadhana Bhakti, and its underlying mood of devotion, which is Bhava. And again, just to recap, when we were discussing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the Bhakti or devotional service is rendered with an idea or with the mood of following the rules and regulations. So our devotional service is driven by rules and regulations. It is not driven by emotions. Okay, so therefore is Cheshta Rupa, this endeavor to follow the rules and regulations. And Bhava is when our devotional service to the Lord is driven by the mood, the spontaneous affection for Krishna. So that is Bhava Rupa. Okay, so Bhava means the effective part of rendering devotional service, which is spontaneous. Srila Prabhupada, he translates this verse, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he writes, when devotional service is executed on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, it is like a sun ray of love for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and one is then situated in bhava. So it's executed on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, which is Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. Prema. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema. Suryamshu Samya Bhag. So it's like a ray of sun. Okay, so when a ray of sun, when the sun comes up in the morning, and before the sun even appears on the horizon, there's light everywhere. And all our activities can be done within that light itself, correct? So the sun does not have to come, the globe does not have to come out of the horizon. The ray of sun itself brings all light. It illuminates the whole world. So similarly, bhava is like that. And the rising of the sun is equivalent to prema. So just one ray of right, we'll just read this translation. That part of bhakti is called bhava, whose essence is samvit and ladini shakti. We will discuss this, which is one ray of the sun of prema, which will soon rise in the heart. Correct? It's like one ray of the sun of prema, which will soon rise in the heart, and which softens the heart with desires to meet, serve, and exchange love with the Lord. So bhava is like one ray, suryamshu samya bhag, like one ray of the sun. This is Prabhupada writes here. It is like sun ray of love for Krishna. It's like sun ray of prema for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and one is then situated in bhava. So heart becomes soft. Heart becomes completely soft at this point, and only when the heart is soft, then emotions and feelings would appear. If the heart is hard, then there is no question of emotions or feelings. Correct? So therefore, in the stage of bhava and prema, the activities of the devotees are not regulated by scriptures, by rules and regulations. The devotion service is performed by the spontaneous affection that the devotee has for the Lord. Now, with respect to Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, okay, our acharyas explain how bhava appears within the heart of the devotee, and they explain this particular term, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. This is a book from Shivaram Maharaj called Krishna Sangati, where he summarizes this in a very nice way with reference to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book Jaiva Dharma. He writes, when the all-enlightening Swarupa Shakti is manifested in the activities called Samvit, those activities are called Shuddha Sattva. When the activities of the Samvit Shakti join with the activities of the Hladni Shakti, the result is the manifestation of Bhava. So what it means is, the activities of the Samvit Shakti bring knowledge, which means they manifest the personality of Krishna. Krishna is manifested within the heart. Correct? We know about Krishna. At this point of time, we know about Krishna only through the scriptures. But when Krishna appears within the heart, then he appears through his potency. We know that Krishna has primarily, or he has infinite amount of potencies categorized into primarily these three. Samvit, Sandhini, and Hladini. Samvit is his knowledge potency. Sandhini is his existence potency, how his dham is manifested, and Hladini is his pleasure potency. So when Krishna reveals himself, he reveals himself through the agency of these potencies. Correct? So when it's in Bhagavad Gita also, it's mentioned that when Krishna appears in this world, he appears through his Atmamaya, through the agency of his internal potency. So he reveals himself, he manifests himself through the agency, through his internal potency. So within the heart of a devotee who has qualified himself to come to the stage of Bhava, Krishna reveals himself through his Samvit potency. Okay. So the activities of the Samvit Shakti bring knowledge about the Lord. The Lord is manifested. Okay, his presence is manifested. And the Lord being just like sun, Krishna Surya Sama, because he's just like sun, then the heart of the devotee is completely illuminated by the sweetness of Krishna, by his appearance, because he's Akhila Rasamrita Murtihi. Krishna is the personification of all the rasas, correct? We discussed that. So when he appears within the heart of a devotee, then the devotee is swimming basically in transcendental affection for Krishna. So that is brought about by the Samvit Shakti of the Lord. Okay, the activities of Hladini Shakti bring pleasure. So the Lord manifests himself, all the glories of the Lord is manifested by him, his Swarupa is manifested by him through his Samvit Shakti, and Hladini Shakti brings intense pleasure to the devotee. Okay, so this is just we are dismantling the internal potency of the Lord, so to speak, to understand that Samvit Shakti brings knowledge about the Lord, it reveals the absolute truth, and Hladini Shakti brings pleasure. But Krishna, being a personification of all this, he possesses all this Shakti. When he appears in the heart of the devotee, then Akhila Samurta Buddhi has appeared in the heart. So it gives knowledge of the Lord about his sweetness and also brings intense pleasure in the heart of the devotee. So when this is manifested within the heart of the devotee, then he experiences bhava. He experiences transcendental affection for the Lord. In this way, the activities of the Lord's Swarup Shakti brings knowledge and taste of the absolute truth, Sri Krishna. Okay, so Samvit refers to Shuddha Sattva. In this particular term, Suddha Sattva Visheshatma. Shuddha Sattva means Samvit potency, and Visheshatma refers to the Hladini potency. Okay, Acharya explained that. We will read this Jivago Swami's commentary. So I'll read that. I put this before the commentary just to give us a good introduction to what we are discussing. So when the Lord is revealed, then he reveals through his Swarupa Shakti, which manifests as Samvit Shakti, bringing knowledge, and Hladini Shakti, which brings pleasure to the devotee. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is this verse, Edui Bhavera Swarupa Tatastha Lakshan, Premera Lakshan Ebishuna Sanatan. Bhava, emotion, has two different symptoms. Constitutional, which is Swarupa Lakshan, and marginal, which is Tatastha Lakshan. Now, my dear Sanatan, listen to the symptoms of love. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Swarup Lakshan, constitutional characteristic. The word Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma means situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness. In this way, the soul is purified of all material contamination, and this position is called Swarupa Lakshan. Okay, when it's situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness and is purified of all material contamination, this position is called Swarupa Lakshan, the constitutional symptom of Bhava or emotion. Correct? Srila Prabhupada also writes this. Where is it? Yeah, such a devotee, he has no agitation from material affection and is interested only in service of Radha and Krishna. So he's not materially contaminated, and he's situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. Tatastha Lakshan is by various tastes, one's heart is softened, and there is an awakening of one's loving propensity to render spontaneous service to the Lord. This is called Tatastha Lakshan, the marginal symptom of Bhava. Okay. Now this is from the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, 323. So what we are doing here is basically trying to understand what Bhava is. We are trying to define Bhava, taking reference from different places. and also referring to Acharya's commentary, that particular verse of Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. Correct? As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure original constitutional position. This state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to the material qualities. Since this Shuddha Sattva existence is under the direct action of the internal potency, in this state the activities of material consciousness stop. Okay, so the first effect of the action of internal potency or the Lord revealing within the heart of the devotee is that one stops, his material consciousness is stopped. Okay, therefore it's primary. For example, when iron is put into fire, it becomes warm, and when red hot, although it is iron, it acts like fire. Similarly, when copper is surcharged with electricity, its action as copper stops, it acts as electricity. Sri Jiva Goswami, which basically means that our chitta or our consciousness, although we still have the mind made up of matter, but still it acts spiritually. Just like when iron is put into fire, it loses the qualities of iron, but then it possesses the qualities of fire. So that's why a pure devotee who has achieved or who attained the level of bhava, his body is completely transcendental. Although apparently it looks like his form is made up of gross material elements, but it has attained the characteristics of spirit. So his form, the form of a pure devotee, is completely spiritual. Sri Jiva Goswami has very nicely described this Vasudev or Shuddha Sattva in his Bhagavad Sandarbha. He explains that Ashtottara Shata is added to the name of the spiritual master to indicate one who is situated in Shuddha Sattva or in the transcendental state of Vasudev. Okay, so before we read this, let me read this. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 23, Madhya Lila, chapter 23, text 13. Srila Prabhupada writes, thus devotional life is divided into two stages, Sadhana Bhakti and Bhava Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti refers to the development of devotional service through the regulative principles. The basic principle for the execution of devotional service is faith, Ado Shraddha. Above that, there's association with devotees, Sadhu Sangha, and after that, there's initiation by a bona fide spiritual master. After initiation, when one follows the regulative principles of devotional service, which is bhajana kriya, one becomes freed from all unwanted things. Anartha nivritti happens. In this way, one becomes firmly fixed, nishtha, and gradually develops a taste for devotional service, ruchi. The more the taste grows, the more one desires to render service to the Lord. In this way, one becomes attached to a particular mellow in the Lord's service. Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya or Madhurya, which is Asakti. As a result of such attachment, Bhava develops. Bhava Bhakti is the platform of purified goodness. Correct? Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. By such purified goodness, one's heart melts in devotional service. Bhava Bhakti is the first seed of love of Godhead. This emotional stage is there before one attains pure love. When that emotional stage intensifies, it is called Prama Bhakti or transcendental love of Godhead. So Acharyas explain, like Prema is a fully blossomed flower, and Bhava is the bud of that flower when it appears. So the bud is also equivalent to the flower, okay, but it's still a bud. So Bhava is equivalent to a bud, whereas the full-blown flower, fully manifested flower is Prema. So therefore, it's the first seed of love of Godhead. It's just like a bud of Prema. So, Sri Jiva Goswami, he says, Bhava or Rati are synonymous. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma indicates that in the future, this Bhava will transform into more elevated stages, culminating in Mahabhava. So, Bhava is just, we discussed, it's the sun ray of the sun of Prema, of love of Godhead. So, Bhava is the starting point, but then future, it manifests and brings about different emotions. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 19, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, 178, it's mentioned the basic aspects of prema, when gradually increasing to different states, are sneha, there's affection, mana, abhorrence, pranaya, love, raga, attachment, anurag, further attachment, bhava, ecstasy, and mahabhava, great ecstasy. Okay, so mahabhava is the highest stage. Now, one thing we should again understand is that it's not that once we go to a further stage, we give up the previous stages. So when we reach the level of prema, it does not mean there is no bhava. Okay, bhava becomes more intensified. Asakti is much, much more intensified on the stage of prema. Then ruchi, the taste is more intense. Nishtha is much more firm. Okay, then anartha nivritti, there's no question of anartha itself. Then bhajana kriya becomes more intense. Okay, and sadhu sangha, we want to associate with like-minded devotees. And shraddha is unwavering. So it's not that when we go through these stages, the lower stages are given up. Okay, it's like the lower stages are much more intensified as we come to the stage of prema. So bhava also becomes more intensified at the stage of prema. It appears within the heart at the stage of after asakti, firm attachment, and then ecstasy appears within the heart. That's bhava. But in the stage of prema, then the bhava matures into all these different things: sneha, mana, pranaya, raga, anuraga, and there's intense bhava and that mahabhava like this. So these are further. It goes into mahabhava. So Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma indicates this, is what Srila Jiva Goswami is saying. When he says Shuddha Sattva refers to Samvit potency or the knowledge potency. Intrinsic nature is knowledge that is self-revealing, which means that Krishna is already there within the heart. As we discussed, Bhava is there within the heart. So in the Shuddha Sattva, in the platform of pure goodness, that Bhava is automatically revealed. It is self-revealing. Just like knowledge is self-revealing, knowledge reveals about a particular object. So a particular object already possesses knowledge. So from philosophically, if we speak, if there is an object, the knowledge is inherent within it. Correct? The knowledge is already inherent within it. And one who come in contact with that object, then he gains knowledge about that, about the qualities of that particular object. If you're not able to follow, it's okay. No, it's philosophically speaking, this is how it is. So an object inherently has qualities. Say for example, this particular desk, it has the qualities that its color is black, it has four legs, there is this top shelf, there is the bottom shelf, and it has, it is slanted. So these are the qualities that it possesses. Okay, so it already has, or it contains that knowledge. And when we come in contact with this particular object, then we gain that knowledge from this particular object. Correct? So philosophically speaking, that is what happens when we break things down. So the object already has that knowledge, and this knowledge is self-revealing when we come in contact with that. Similarly, at the stage of bhava, when we come in contact with Krishna, then the knowledge about Krishna is automatically revealed. Krishna is already there within the heart, but we are not able to connect to him because of our material contamination. When the contamination is removed, then Krishna manifests through his Swarupa Shakti, and knowledge about him is being gained. So this is what is being referred to as Shuddha Sattva. Okay, one more thing I'll tell you is what we're discussing now is not there in Nectar of Devotion. Okay, we are trying to understand Bhava from the commentaries of Acharyas and how Srila Prabhupada explains these things in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, so we are trying to spend some time so that we can understand these things and not just go through the book so that it does not make any sense to us. So we're just making an attempt for doing that. Okay, so this knowledge is self-revealing. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma means working of Samvit and Hladini potency, which is concentrated transformation of Swarupa Shakti. When Samvit and Hladini combine, they cause the most intense state of desiring to please Krishna. Okay, so that is the stage of Bhava. Definition of Bhava from Amarkosha Dictionary. This is Jivago Swami commenting. Vikaro Manaso Bhavo. Bhava means transformation of the mind. The mind is currently contaminated by the three modes of material nature. When the mind comes to the state of Shuddha Sattva, then there is transformation of the mind. And Bhava automatically appears because constitutionally we are part and parcel of Krishna. We are supposed to render devotional service to him on the level of Bhava and Prema. So Bhava means transformation of the mind from material contamination to the platform of Shuddha Sattva. This we already discussed. By comparing Prema to the sun, used to indicate that as the sun will soon appear after the first glow in the morning, so the Prema will appear soon after Bhava's appearance, since the Prema is condensed form of Bhava. All this Bhava is seen in the eternal associate of the Lord. The mental state of devotee within this material world becomes similar by the mercy of the Lord and his devotees. Then, in this connection, this is Srila Prabhupada writing now, there is a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead. And in that stage, one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally. So when a person achieves bhava, then he exhibits this sattvika bhava. We have heard of this term Ashta Sattvika Vikar. Correct? There are 8 transformations of the body. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that in his lectures, and it's primarily manifest in the personality, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you have read Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Antilila, and even during Rath Yatra pastimes, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Jagannath, Lord Jagannath for the first time, these symptoms of Sattvika Bhava were manifest in his personality. So when one comes to the stage of Bhava, the Sattvika Bhavas appear. Although these symptoms appear, but they are not permanent. They come and go. Okay, and this aspect of Sattvika Bhavas which come and go, which are intermittent, it's more elaborately explained in the southern division. Yes, in the southern division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we will not be discussing as part of this course. But these are Sattvika Bhavas. And we will also see if we can try to understand these 5 Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, Vyabhichari Bhava, and Sthai Bhava. So Vibhava, Anubhava, and all these 5 basically are discussed in southern division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. With respect to Bhava, these all 5 come together. We will see if we can discuss it a little bit just to give you an idea, or else we'll discuss a little bit tomorrow about this. Just so that we are inspired to further go on reading Nectar of Devotion, not stop at chapter 19. Okay. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he says, when sadhana bhakti or devotional service in the stage of practice matures into bhava bhakti or spontaneous devotional service, it is automatically transformed into sthai bhava or permanent spiritual sentiment. So this sthai bhava is these 5: Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, which is also called as Rati, means attachment to Krishna in one particular mood, either as a servant, either as a friend on the level of parents or guardian, or on the level of Madhurya Rasa, basically conjugal love. So this is attachment to Krishna. And the affection or the intense emotion that one feels when one has such kind of attachment to Krishna is called as Thai Bhava. And then because of Vibhava, then this Bhava becomes manifest into Rasa, where there's a taste of pleasure, where this pleasure is being experienced. Bhava is a specific emotion that one may have, but then there's Rasa when there's interaction. So therefore there's Shanta Rasa, Dasa Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, Sakhya Rasa, and Madhuri Rasa. Anyway, these things are technical. So when they come, so there is Bhava, there is a permanent emotion, permanent affection for the Lord, that's called as Thai Bhava. And when Vibhava is included, means the impetus for affection, or when there's interaction, then there is experience of ecstasy, of rasa, which is then further qualified as anubhavas, which are external. Anyways, I'll not confuse you anymore. We'll go ahead. The spiritual emotions of bhava are both the rays of the sun of prema and the rays of the sun of Krishna's unmatched beauty, which embodies pure transcendence. The conclusion is that bhava bhakti or rati is prema, love of God in its budding stage. Correct? In this stage, the Ashta Sattvika Vikar or 8 ecstatic symptoms such as crying, goosebumps, etc. begin to manifest slightly on his person. So when the devotee meditates on the Lord's lotus feet, his heart melts and tears stream from his eyes spontaneously and profusely. Descriptions found in the Tantras and Puranas state that these ecstatic symptoms make a shy but firm beginning in the stage of bhava, and later they deepen and intensify in prema. Okay. As long as bhakti, this is from Jaiva Dharma, as long as bhakti is on the platform of sadhana bhakti, everything the sadhana devotee sees in Goloka is slightly tinged with mundane understanding. Correct? Because we have experience only of mundane things, so it is tinged with mundane understanding when we are on the level of sadhana bhakti. After being promoted to the stage of bhava bhakti, the devotee is blessed with direct glimpses of Goloka. This is the manifestation of Krishna as Swarup Shakti. So it's not only Krishna manifest. When Krishna comes, his eternal associates, his pastimes, his glories, his name, form, his dham, everything is manifest. So at that time, one gets the direct glimpse of Goloka. On the level of Prema Bhakti, the devotee sees Goloka to a much greater extent. Okay. So when Lord Brahma, he was no, he did not have a clue of how to create this universe. Then he heard these two letters, tapa, and he performed austerities. He performed penances to gain the blessings of the Lord. And once he perfected, then he could see the whole Golok Vrindavan. And that's when he composed this Brahma Samhita prayers. So by performing these austerities, Lord Brahma attained the level of bhava and prema. This is what we understand. And that is how he was able to see Golokadham. And he also able to come in contact with the Supreme Lord who directly came in front of him. Okay, so continuing, an example of Satvika Bhava. So just so that we do not lose track, what we have discussed till now is the definition of Bhava Bhakti, which Srila Prabhupada elaborates in his paragraph. And he says that there are two kinds of devotional service. There is Sadhana Bhakti and there is Bhava Prema Bhakti. And then there's executive and effective Cheshta Rupa and Bhava Rupa. And this Bhava Rupa is called as Bhava. The effective portion is called as Bhava. Then we discussed about this verse on Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. And this Bhava Bhakti is manifested through, or rather, Bhava Bhakti is experienced or can be seen by the Satvika Bhava that one experiences, Ashta Satvika Vikar, which one exhibits. But occasionally, an example of that is when King Ambrish was put into difficulty by Durvasa, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord. And thus there were some changes in his body and tears were falling from his eyes. These symptoms are activities of ecstasy. They are visible in the shivering of the body and shedding of tears. Okay. After the outward appearance of these ecstatic symptoms, they stay within the mind and continuation of the ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna. So just read this translation. Appearing in the mental functions, bhava becomes the mental state itself. Though bhava is self-revealing, it appears to become manifest by the mind. Though in its essential nature, bhava is the taste itself, it also acts as a cause of tasting the pastimes of Krishna, his associates, and his pastimes. Which basically mean that when bhava appears within the heart of a devotee, then it becomes his permanent state. Okay, so once bhava appears within the heart of the devotee, he does not come down to the material platform. Once Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, Sarup Shakti of the Lord is revealed within the heart, he does not fall into the material pool. He does not come back to his previous material activities or he is not influenced by material contamination. So bhava itself becomes his mental state. And from then on, he just makes progress. But there is a, or what do we say, there is a danger, not say danger, but there is a risk we will see at the end of 18th chapter. Sri Rupa Goswami specifically mentions that this bhava can become, or one can come down from the stage of bhava if he offends a devotee, a pure devotee of the Lord. So on the stage of bhava, it's natural progress. Okay, it naturally progresses to the further stage of prema. But if one offends a pure devotee of the Lord who is very dear to Krishna, then he comes down from the stage of bhava. So that's the only thing which will bring a devotee down from the stage of bhava. Okay. Otherwise, the ecstasy continues. Or when Srila Prabhupada writes ecstasy, it means bhava. The ecstasy continues, and the continuation of ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna. Means it progresses through sneha, mana, raga, anuraga, like that. Bhava or rati appears on its own within the mind of a devotee and becomes their mind, their emotions. Just like the Lord who is self-revealing and independent makes his appearance as if being born. Krishnadi means Krishna and his associates, pastimes, form and qualities. So all these things manifest. When Krishna manifests, his associates, pastimes, form and qualities also manifest within the heart of the devotee. Bhava appears in very fast. Oh, sorry, I'll read this. Elevation to the state of ecstasy can be possible in two ways. One way is by constant association with pure devotees. So Srila Prabhupada writes this with respect to sadhana. There are two things, sadhanabhi niveshana and Krishna tad bhaktayos tatha. So there are two ways in which bhava can appear. Okay, so the causes of ecstasy or the bhava to achieve, to elevate to the stage of bhava is possible in two ways. One is through sadhana bhakti, which Srila Prabhupada writes as constant association with pure devotees. The other way is by special mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna, which is Krishna and Tad Bhakta, Krishna's devotees. So these are the two ways. Elevation to the ecstatic stage of life is generally attained through association with pure devotees. Means bhava is primarily or generally it's attained to sadhana bhakti. While elevation to that stage by the special mercy of Krishna or his devotees is very rare. Okay, so the process, there's a process and there's a special ticket also, which is by the mercy of Krishna and his devotees. The purport is that one should execute devotional service rigidly in the association of devotees so that there will be certainty in raising oneself to that ecstatic position. In special cases, of course, there is special favor from Krishna, and although we should always expect that, we should not sit idly and simply wait for Krishna's special mercy. The regular duties must be performed. Correct? Very clear. It is just as when sometimes it is found that a person who never attended school or college may be recognized as a great scholar, or an honorary degree from great universities may be offered to him. Right? It's happening even now. Personalities are given PhDs, doctorate degrees, although according to us they are nowhere qualified, but these people think they are qualified. So it's similar. But this does not mean that one should avoid school and expect to automatically receive an honorary degree from some university. Correct? One should go through the process. Similarly, one should devoutly execute the regulative principles of devotional service and at the same time hope for Krishna's favor or his devotees' favor. Then, sadhanabhi niveshacha. So that bhava which appears from sadhana bhakti is being discussed. Then, Sri Rupa Goswami says that it can arise from either Vaidhi sadhana bhakti or Raganuga sadhana bhakti. An example of rising to a stage of ecstatic love by executing the regulative principles of devotional service is given in the life story of Narada. So this is elevation to the stage of bhava through Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Okay? Which is described to Vyasdev in Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada tells there of his previous life and how he developed to the stage of ecstatic love. He was engaged in the service of great devotees and used to hear their talks and songs. Because he had the opportunity to hear these pastimes and songs of Krishna from the mouths of pure devotees, he became very attracted within his heart. Because he had become so eager to hear these topics, he gradually developed within himself an ecstatic love for Krishna. So by performing the limbs of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, he was elevated to the stage of Bhava Bhakti. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur comments, Bhava may arise by Vaidhi Sadhana or Raganuga Sadhana. This gives rise to two varieties of Bhava. Sadhana gives rise to Nishtha without developing Ruchi and then Asakti. How will Bhava arise? This verse answers by saying that one must go through those stages. Which means that we are directly saying by performing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, one comes to the level of Bhava. But someone might object, what about the intermediate stages? Our Sadhana Bhakti is Bhajana Kriya, but then Anartha Nivritti will also happen, understood. But what about Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti? So, Srila Vishwanath Chakra Thakur comments that by performing sadhana bhakti, one will automatically go through these stages and attain the level of bhava. So, we are not making a jump. One must go through these stages. Without going through these stages, one cannot attain bhava. Without nishtha, firm faith, bhava will not appear. Without ruchi, bhava will not appear. Without attachment to Krishna and his devotees, asakti, bhava will not appear. Okay, bhava, appearance of bhava is dependent on everything below it. So all of these things should be attained. One cannot jump from one stage to bhava stage. And when we will discuss this in the 18th chapter, where a person who's not even performing sadhana bhakti, he'll say, just emotions, I have bhava for Krishna. No, one should go through these stages. Then the actual rati or bhava will manifest. One cannot jump from the level of sadhana bhakti directly, or rather jump from Vaidhi sadhana bhakti directly and assume or imitate or imagine that he has come to the level of bhava and prema. So that is why, if you see in the lives of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Prabhupada, they criticized all these Babajis of Radhakund or all those people who tended or who tried or who made a show of expressing themselves to be on the highest level of bhava and prema, but then they were attached to other abominable activities also. Because by definition itself, asakti means, and anartha nivritti means everything material should be rejected. No, the heart is completely purified. And at the stage of asakti, one does not have any attachment to anything apart from Krishna and those who are related to Krishna. And after asakti only comes bhava. Correct? So one who is saying or claiming himself to be on the stage of bhava, if you still have attachment, asakti for other things apart from Krishna, then he's just imitating, he's just pretending to be on the stage of bhava. So this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is saying, That Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti will not directly make, cannot pole vault or jump into Bhava Bhakti. One has to go through these stages as well. Okay. Then Prabhupada continues. This ecstatic love is prior to the pure love of Krishna. Because in the next verse, Narada confirms that by gradual process of hearing from the great sages, he developed love of Godhead. So this ecstatic love, which was manifested by Narada, it was prior to the pure love of Krishna. And Bhava, it automatically matures when one continues performing devotional service. On the stage of Bhava, automatically it comes to Prema. In that connection, Narada continues to say in the first canto, 5th chapter, first I passed my days in the association of the great sages. During the rainy autumn season, every morning and evening I heard them while they were singing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And thus my heart gradually became purified. As soon as I heard them with great attention, the influence of the modes of material ignorance and passion disappeared, and I became firmly fixed in devotional service to the Lord. You see, this reference speaks about Narada who had deep or who had association with pure devotees of the Lord. So that is why when Srila Prabhupada, he defines that bhava will appear from association with pure devotees, the reference itself proves that. So the stage of sadhana bhakti, when we were discussing this, the 5 most important limbs of devotional service, the first limb is mentioned as sadhu sangha. Right? Sadhu sangha, nama kirtan, bhagavad shravan. Then Mathuravas, Sri Murti, Shraddhai Sevan. So the first thing that comes is sadhu sangha. And even the stages of progressing in pure devotional service, there is Shraddha, and then after that Sadhu Sangha. If Sadhu Sangha is not there, then we will not have, or our Bhajana Kriya will not be firm. The faith, which is the starting point, will not strengthen itself without the association of devotees. So therefore, for Sadhana Bhakti, Sadhu Sangha or association of devotees is very, very important. Right? This is the practical example of how one can develop to the stage of ecstatic love simply by the association of pure devotees. It is essential, therefore, that one constantly associate with pure devotees who are engaged morning and evening in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one will get the chance to purify his heart and develop his ecstatic pure love for Krishna. So, therefore, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, specifically association with pure devotees, leads to Bhava Bhakti. This statement is also confirmed in the 3rd canto, where Lord Kapila says, "My dear mother, when a person is actually in association with pure devotees, the sublime potency of my devotional service can be experienced." In other words, when a pure devotee speaks, his words act upon the hearts of the audience. Okay. So one more thing which I like to clarify here is this bhava, this bhakti, this bhava which is appearing is coming through Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. We are not speaking about the mercy of devotee in attaining bhava. Okay. You remember we have these two. There is through sadhana and by the mercy of Krishna and his pure devotees. So what we are discussing here is association with devotees falls under the category of sadhana bhakti. Okay, and this mercy of Krishna or his pure devotees is a very rare and special case. So that will be discussed later. So this example is not for mercy of pure devotees because association with pure devotees is a part of sadhana bhakti. What is the secret of hearing and chanting? A professional speaker cannot impress the transcendental ecstasy within the heart of listeners. However, when a realized soul who is engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject spiritual life within the audience. One should therefore seek the association of such pure, unalloyed devotees, and by such association and service, a neophyte devotee will certainly develop attachment, love, and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, just by hearing to a pure devotee morning and evening, one will come to the stage of bhava. Correct? Dvitiyo means now bhava arising from raganuga sadhana is being explained. So within sadhana bhakti, we have Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and raganuga sadhana bhakti. We discussed about Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, taking the example of Narad Muni. Now we'll discuss about raganuga sadhana and how this leads to bhava bhakti. In Padma Purana, there's a story of a neophyte devotee who, in order to raise herself to the ecstatic platform, danced all night to invoke the Lord's grace upon her. So she's not following Vaidhi sadhana, but she just danced all night. So Jivago Swami comments, by the influence of the deity form, she has developed raga, similar to Krishna's dear associates. The girl has also said, among many women, the Lord has greatest affection for me. He dances with me while embracing my neck. It is to be understood that Srimati Radharani decided to make the girl her Sakhi when the girl reached the final stage by Raganuga Sadhana. So Jiva Goswami actually quotes this from one of the Puranas. I am not exactly sure which one. I think it's Brahma Vaivarta Purana, but I'm not sure. But this particular instance is more elaborately explained there. Srila Rupa Goswami just gives the instant here, and he says that this devotee, she just danced all night on the Raganuga Sadhana platform just to please the Lord without following any of the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and she was elevated to the position of Radharani's Sakhi by Srimati Radharani's mercy. So that is Radhanuga Sadhana. So now we might think that, okay, this is Srimati Radharani's mercy, so it will come under the category of Krishna's mercy or the mercy of pure devotees once it is the level of Bhava. But because she performed Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana, she did something. Okay, she performed Raganuga Sadhana, therefore it's categorized as Raganuga Sadhana. One who comes to the level of Bhava by Krishna's or his pure devotee's mercy, it means he's not even performing any type of sadhana, but just by the mercy of the Lord, he comes to that platform. Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process, one all of a sudden develops devotion for Krishna. This sudden development of devotional attitude in a person must be understood as a special mercy of Krishna or his devotee. So this is the second, achieving to the level of Bhava by the mercy of Krishna and his devotees. This apparently accidental development of ecstatic feelings through the causeless mercy of Krishna can be divided into three groups, simply by speaking, by glancing, and by good wishes. In the Naradiya Purana, there is a statement about development of ecstatic love simply by speaking. Lord Krishna said to Narada, O best of the Brahmanas, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness. So by Krishna's words, then done, elevated to the transcendental loving devotional service for Krishna. In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about developing ecstatic love toward Krishna simply by glancing. It is stated there, when the inhabitants of Jangala province saw the personality of Godhead Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling that they could not withdraw their glance from him. Okay, so Krishna bestowed his mercy by these devotees just glancing or looking at Krishna. Then Hardaha means well-wishing. If the Lord well wishes or wishes well for somebody, then he attains Bhava. As far as heartfelt wishes are concerned, there is a statement in the Shuka Samhita where Narada tells Srila Vyasadeva, you have a son, referring to Shukdev Goswami, who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead. And I can observe that without any following of the regulative principles of devotional service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many, many births. So Sri Jivago Goswami comments, Bhakti to Vishnu, which is the goal, has appeared without sadhana. The conclusion is that he attained Bhava only by the mercy of the Lord, since there is no evidence of performance of any sadhana or of obtaining the mercy of devotees, referring to Shukdev Goswami. This mercy must have appeared through the heart, because he developed bhakti in the form of remembering the Lord while still in the womb. While in the womb, he did not see the Lord or receive words of blessings from the Lord. Right? The Lord did not speak to him, and he did not glance at the Lord. Thus, mercy manifesting in the heart could have been the only way. The Brahma Vaivarta Purana gives the details. So Shukdev Goswami is the example of this Harda, or just by the wishes of the Lord, Bhava appears within him. Then the mercy of devotee. Tad Bhakta Prasadajaha. By the mercy of devotee, Bhava might appear. As per ecstatic love of Krishna, there is statement in the 7th canto, 4th chapter. My dear king, it is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad. He developed a natural attraction for Krishna, and whatever I can explain about his character will simply be an arrangement of words. His actual character is impossible to describe. This means that Narada himself admitted that the natural development of Prahlad's ecstatic love was by the grace of Lord Krishna. So actually, Prahlad attained that position by the grace of Narad Muni. But Narad Muni, in his humility, he says that the grace of Lord Krishna is upon Prahlad Maharaj. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj attaining to the stage of Bhava is by the mercy of the Lord's pure devotee, Narad Muni. This natural attraction for Krishna on the part of Prahlad was developed simply by the mercy of Narada, right? When Prahlad Maharaj was within the womb of his mother, she was being sympathetically instructed by Narada about the science of devotional service. And at the same time, Narada was wishing that the child within the womb could also take advantage of the instruction. Because Narada, an authorized devotee and great associate of the personality of Godhead, was desiring auspiciousness for Prahlad, he developed all the characteristics of a high grade devotee. Just by the desire of the pure devotee, he attained this natural attraction. It is caused by the special grace of the personality of Godhead or by the special grace of great devotee like Narada. There's a statement in the Skanda Purana wherein Parvat Muni tells Narada, "My dear Narad, of all saintly persons, you are so great and glorious that simply by your good wishes, a low-born hunter also has become a great elevated devotee of Lord Krishna." Correct? We know this story. So this ecstatic love for Krishna can be divided into 5 divisions, which will be described by Srila Rupa Goswami later on. Okay, so this is the Sthai Bhava, Shanta Dasya Sakhya Vatsalya Madhurya, and the Western division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu dedicates the whole division is only talking about these 5. So that will be discussed later. So just to recap what all we have discussed till now, we saw the definition of Bhava Bhakti. We explained Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma for some time. And we also saw what is the Samvit potency, how Samvit potency reveals the knowledge about the Lord. Hladni potency brings the pleasure to the Lord. Pleasure to the devotee about the Lord. Then we discussed the causes of Bhava Bhakti. It can come from Sadhana Bhakti, either Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti or Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And we saw references for that. For Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the example given was that of Narad Muni, who came in association, constant association with pure devotees, and then he reached the level of Bhava. For Raganuga Sadhana, we discussed about an instant where a devotee danced throughout the whole night and achieved the stage of Bhava. From mercy of Krishna, by speaking, by glancing, by a devotee taking glance of Krishna, and by Krishna's good wishes. And we saw examples of that as well. And by the mercy of devotee, is Prahlad Maharaj and the hunter, who, by the mercy of Narad Muni, achieved the level of Bhava. So this is chapter 17. Okay, a brief introduction has been given. Now, in chapter 18, the character of one in ecstatic love is mentioned. So one who has attained or one who has reached the level of Bhava Bhakti, how or what he does or what are the characteristics of one who is in Bhava Bhakti. Okay, this is what is being explained here. So these typical actions of Bhava Bhakti are actually called as Anubhava, okay, or the external manifestation of the Bhava that a devotee possesses. So there are totally 9 in number. Srila Prabhupada lists them. So we will discuss that. And then Rati Abhas, where a resemblance to Bhava or Rati is there, which can be categorized into these 2, Pratibimba and Chaya. Srila Prabhupada explains all these things. The destruction of Bhavabhas and Bhava. So as we just briefly discuss this, when offense is being made, then Bhava, a devotee comes down from the level of Bhava. We will discuss that. And apparent faults in Bhava Bhakta. So although a devotee is on the level of Bhava, if there are some material faults which is seen in him, that should not be considered as an impediment to his level of pure devotional service. Okay. So the Anubhavas or characteristics of a person who has developed the bud of Bhava are as follows. So Srila Prabhupada writes here specifically, Rupa Goswami next describes the characteristics of a person who has actually developed his ecstatic love for Krishna. The characteristics are as follows. He is always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day, without deviation. So this is one characteristic of a person who is on the stage of Bhava. He never wants to waste his time. Avyartha Kalatvam. Right? Okay, these are things. Kshantir, Avyartha Kalatvam, Virakti, Mana Shunyata, Asha Bandha, Samutkantha, Namagani Sadaruchihi, Asakti, Tad Gunakhyane Pritis, and Tad Vasati Sthale. These are totally 9. And Srila Prabhupada translates each one of them. He is always reserved and perseverant. He is always detached from all material attraction. He does not long for any material respect in return for his activities, right? Manya Shunyata. He is always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. He is always very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. He is very much attached to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. He is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He is very pleased to live in a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed. Example, Mathura, Vrindavan or Dwaraka. Okay, so these characteristics are we are encouraged to develop these characteristics. Okay. So even on this level of sadhana bhakti, we are encouraged to develop these characteristics. Like we should not waste our time. We should not sit idly. We should always want service. We should utilize our time properly. We should not. We should always be reserved. We should be detached from all kinds of material attraction. We should not long for any material respect. We should always be certain that Krishna will protect me, right? Rakshishati vishvaso goptatvayaranam tatha. And we should be eager to serve the Lord faithfully. We should be very much attached to chanting. So all these things, in fact, all of them are applicable to us. We are supposed to do this. But the problem is that we have to push ourselves to get to this particular stage. But those who are on the stage of bhava, these characteristics are automatically manifest in their personality. So therefore they are called as anubhava. Although these things seem to be the same, which we are also supposed to cultivate, but then for us it is sadhana, right? It's just like deity worship. When a pure devotee on the stage of bhava and prema, he does deity worship, it's on a completely different level. It's on a spiritual level. But what we are doing, we're practicing to do devotional service. So the activity seems to be the same, but then the level of consciousness and purity is completely different. So this is similar to that. These characteristics we are encouraged, or we must develop. We should push ourselves to develop these good qualities. But then these characteristics are automatically manifest in the personality of a devotee who has attained the stage of bhava. Okay. So this is how we should understand. For Avyartha Kalatvam, Srila Prabhupada writes, an unalloyed devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna is always engaging his words in reciting prayers to the Lord. Within the mind, he is always thinking of Krishna, and with his body, he either offers obeisances by bowing down before the deity or engages in some other service. During these ecstatic activities, he sometimes sheds tears. In this way, his whole life is engaged in the service of the Lord with not a moment wasted on any other engagement. Right? So this is the characteristic, one of the characteristics of one who has developed bhava level. When a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called reserved and perseverant. Means shantihi. He is undisturbed even when there is cause for disturbance. So that person, that's a characteristic which is manifest by Bhava Bhakta. An example of this perseverance and reservation is found in the behavior of King Parikshit. The king says there to all the sages present before him at the time of his death, my dear Brahmanas, you should always accept me as your surrendered servant. I have come to the bank of the Ganges just to devote my heart and soul onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So please bless me, that Mother Ganges may also be pleased with me. Let the curse of the Brahmana's son fall upon me. I do not mind. I only request that at the last moment of my life, all of you will kindly chant the holy name of Vishnu, so that I may realize his transcendental qualities. This example of Maharaj Parikshit's behavior, his remaining patient, even at the last point of his life, his undisturbed condition of mind, is an example of reservation. This is one of the characteristics of a devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna. Correct? Is undisturbed. Then detachment, viraktihi. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment. But when a devotee develops transcendental love for Krishna, his senses are no longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. Okay. So there's a nice example of this detachment in connection with the character of King Bharat. In the 5th canto, 14th chapter, verse 43 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Emperor Bharat was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life, he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, etc., as though they were untouchable stools. Emperor Bharat provides a typical example of detachment. He had everything enjoyable in the material world, but he left it. This means that detachment does not mean artificially keeping oneself aloof and apart from the allurements of attachment. Even in the presence of such allurements, if one can remain unattracted by material attachments, he is called detached. So, in the presence of these allurements, we have to push ourselves that we do not interact with these things. And sometimes, because the mind is weak, we end up interacting with them and basically lowering our consciousness or getting into mundane consciousness. Or most of the time, we are in mundane consciousness. Sometimes we elevate to Krishna consciousness. But for a person in Bhava Bhakti, for him, these allurements do not provide any enticement. there is no enticement, there is no attraction at all. Automatically he's detached because all these things have no taste. He has no taste for any of these things, for family, for children, for relatives, for opulence, for palaces, horses, elephants. No, king will possess all these things, but he has no attachment or allurement for any of these things. That means he is on the stage of Bhava Bhakti. In the beginning, of course, a neophyte must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachment. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not at all attracted. This is the actual criteria of detachment, which is possible only when one comes to the stage of Bhava Bhakti. Okay, till that point, it's a struggle. Manishunyata, where a devotee, in spite of possessing all the qualities of pure realization, is not proud of his position, he is called prideless. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that King Bhagirath was the emperor above all other kings. Correct? He was an emperor. Emperor means there are subordinate kings within him, within his rule. So there are different kings, but then he's the emperor of all kings. Means he's on the top. Yet he developed such ecstatic love for Krishna that he became a mendicant and went out begging even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. He was so humble that he respectfully bowed down before them. There are many similar instances in the history of India. Actually, Prabhupada gives a personal, his own example. Even very recently, about 200 years ago or less, one big landlord known as Lal Babu, a Calcutta householder, became a Vaishnava and lived in Vrindavan. He was also begging from door to door, even at the homes of his political enemies. Begging involves being ready to be insulted by persons to whose home one has come. That is natural. But one has to tolerate such insults for the sake of Krishna. The devotee of Krishna can accept any position in the service of Krishna. And this also manifests in the personality of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When he found out the actual place where Mahaprabhu was born, then he wanted to construct a temple there, Yog Peeth. So, although he was the magistrate, means he was on a very high position, still he used to go and beg from door to door, asking for donation for 1 rupee or 1 paisa or whatever, no, whatever the currency was. He used to go door to door so that those devotees can also be engaged in service of Krishna for constructing this particular temple. So he is also a very good example of obviously, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a Mahabhagat. So he exhibited this quality of Manishunyata. Then the strong conviction that one will certainly receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called in Sanskrit Ashabandha. Ashabandha means to continue to think. Because I'm trying my best to follow the routine principles of devotional service, I'm sure that I'll go back to Godhead, back to home. So there is hope. Hope against hope. That one will go. Srila Prabhupada writes this. In this connection, one prayer to Rupa Goswami is sufficient to exemplify this hopefulness. He says, I have no love for Krishna, nor for the causes of developing love of Krishna, namely hearing and chanting. So, one more thing we should understand from this, one who's on the level of Bhava or Prema, he thinks he has no love for Krishna. Okay, that's automatically manifest. He thinks he has no love for Krishna. He feels that. Not like he artificially says that he has no love for Krishna, but he actually feels that he has no love for Krishna. He's the lowest of the lowest. No, he's the lowest, he's the warmest tool. No, we saw this example of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami as well. So they think or they feel like that, although they are on the topmost level. And the process of Bhakti Yoga, by which one is always thinking of Krishna and fixing his lotus feet in the heart, is also lacking in me. That I'm not performing Bhakti Yoga also properly. As far as philosophical knowledge or pious works are concerned, I don't see any opportunity for me to execute such activities because I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to do all these things. Means a person, if he's not in any of does not belong to any of the varnas, then he's not qualified to do any of these activities. So there's no opportunity for me. But above all, I am not even born of a nice family. Correct? Therefore, I must simply pray to you, Gopijana Vallabha, Krishna, maintainer and beloved of the gopis. I simply wish and hope that some way or other I may be able to approach your lotus feet, and this hope is giving me pain because I think myself quite incompetent to approach that transcendental goal of life. So, although there is a desire, I wish and I hope, but then because I'm so lowly qualified, I have no qualification whatsoever, this hope itself is giving me pain. That you are you are so qualified, you are infinitely qualified, and I have no qualification. But still, I have this desire or hope that you will take me with you. But then that is giving me pain because I have no qualification whatsoever. That is his feeling. The purport is that under this heading of Asha Bandha, one should continue to hope against hope that some way or other he will be able to approach the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So devotee on the level of bhava, he thinks like this. That is his characteristic. Samutkantha. When one is sufficiently eager to achieve success in devotional service, that eagerness is called samutkantha. This means complete eagerness. Actually, this eagerness is the prize for achieving success in Krishna consciousness. Everything has some value, and one has to pay the value before obtaining or possessing it. It is stated in the Vedic literature that to purchase the most valuable thing, Krishna consciousness, one has to develop intense eagerness for achieving success. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks this, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Api Mulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Sukritir Na Labhyate. It is actually a conversation between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, this is Ramananda Rai speaking. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. We discussed it, right? Karma and Gyan are not limbs of pure devotional service. You perform your prescribed duties for thousands and millions of lifetimes. You speculate for thousands and millions of lifetimes. It not lead one in the progress of pure devotional service. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is intense greed. Laulyam api, mulyam ekalam. Only intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Right? Our problem is we do not have the intense greed. But we should have intense greed. So a devotee, he has this intense eagerness to achieve success in devotional service. This intense eagerness is very nice expressed by Bilamangal Thakur in his Krishna Karnamrita. He says, I am eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavan whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe, whose eyes are always bounded by black eyebrows and expanded like lotus petals, and who is always eagerly glancing over his devotees and therefore moving slightly here and there. His eyes are always moist, his lips are colored like copper, and through those lips there comes a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him at Vrindavan. So this intense eagerness to see the Lord. Nahamagane sada ruchihi. This is attachment to chanting the holy names of the Lord. In the same Krishna Karnamrita, there is another statement about the chanting of Radharani. It is said by one of the associates of Radharani, O Lord Govinda, the girl who is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu is now shedding tears and she is anxiously chanting your holy name, Krishna, Krishna. Eagerness to describe the Lord's transcendental qualities is Tad Gunakhyane Asaktihi. Attachment for chanting the glories of the Lord is also expressed in the Krishna Karnamrita as follows. What shall I do for Krishna, who is pleasing beyond all pleasurable conceptions, and who is naughtier than all restless boys? The idea of Krishna's beautiful activities is attracting my heart, and I do not know what I can do. So one has attachment for chanting the glories of the Lord, because the Lord is manifest within the heart of a devotee who has this ecstatic loving symptoms for Krishna. Attraction for living in a place where Krishna has his pastimes. In the book Padyavali by Rupa Goswami, there is the following statement about Vrindavan. In this place, the son of Maharaj Nanda used to live with his father, who was king of all cowherd men. In this place, Lord Krishna broke the cart in which the Shakata Sura demon was concealed. At this place, Damodara, who can cut the knot of our material existence, was tied up by his mother, Yashoda. A pure devotee of Lord Krishna resides in the district of Mathura or Vrindavan and visits all the places where Krishna's pastimes were performed. At these sacred places, Krishna displayed his childhood activities with the cowherd boys and mother Yashoda. The system of circumambulating all these places is still current among the devotees of Lord Krishna, and those coming to Mathura and Vrindavan always feel transcendental pleasure. Actually, if someone goes to Vrindavan, he will immediately feel separation from Krishna, who performed such nice activities when he was present there. So those pure devotees, they take pleasure or they want to do all these things. Jivago Swami comments, Mathura here means the whole Mathura Mandal, thus including Vraja, which is described in the verse. Sometimes the word Vraja Bhuvam is found replacing the word Madhupurim. So Mathura means the whole 160 square mile area. Okay, such attraction for remembering Krishna's activities is known as attachment for Krishna. Now, after this has been described, these are the 9 characteristics of those in ecstatic love in Bhava Bhakti. Then Sri Rupa Goswami speaks about the Pratyabhas or resemblance to Bhava or Rati, or those who manifest or those who claim to manifest these symptoms, but actually it is not so. There are impersonalist philosophers and mystics, however, who by show of devotional service want ultimately to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord. They sometimes try to imitate a pure devotee's sentiment for visiting the holy places where Krishna has had his pastimes, but they simply have a view for salvation, and so their activities cannot be considered attachment. Correct? So, no, this is prominent in North India, where people express their bhava for Lord Ramachandra, and because they're influenced by different books of Ramayana, they think ultimately they have to merge into Lord Ramachandra is just a manifestation. It's a typical Mayavad thing. Lord Ramachandra is a manifestation, or is the personification of Brahman in conjunction with Shuddha Sattva, means pure mode of goodness. We are not talking about the transcendental mode of goodness, but Shuddha or Sattva Guna, which is not contaminated by Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So Lord Ramachandra is a manifestation of that, and by doing bhakti to him, by expressing bhava to him, by expressing so much emotions for Lord Ramachandra, then I'll ultimately merge with the absolute truth, merge into Brahman. So this expression of bhava which they manifest, it is actually not bhava. It is not the pure sentiment. It's not rati. It's not bhava. So these activities cannot be considered attachment to the Lord because they have ulterior motives. They do not have attachment to Krishna or Lord Ramchandra. Their attachment is to Brahman. But then they are in between, they're trying to exhibit all these kinds of different symptoms. So therefore it is not accepted as rati or bhava. Correct? So Jivago Goswami says, it has been stated that the quality of real rati is having the desire only to please the Lord. This we have been discussing from the start. The desire to only please the Lord is the quality of real rati. If other desires are present, it should not be considered rati, in spite of the presence of other symptoms such as sattvika bhava. So one might manifest this ashta sattvika vikar. Okay, tears from perspiration, then standing of hairs on one's body, all that he might manifest. But because it is not coming from the desire to please Krishna, therefore they are not accepted as such. One should not think that if a person has strong desires for things other than Krishna, it can be called rati for that particular object. For instance, rati for liberation. Means bhava is applicable, or rati or attachment is applicable only to Krishna and his forms and his expansions. It is not applicable to anything else, either merging into impersonal Brahman or for material sense gratification and worshipping of demigods also. So those who are attracted to demigod worship say, I am a devotee of this particular demigod of either Surya, Chandra or Shani or whatever, different particular demigod, Ganapati like this, Lord Shiva. This cannot be called as rati, or this cannot be called as bhava for that particular personality, that particular demigod. The definition of rati or bhava itself is applicable only to Krishna and his expansions. It is not applicable to any other living entity or any other material object, even impersonal liberation included. That is his point. Okay. Rati is very rare. It is said by Rupa Goswami that the attachment exhibited by pure devotees for Krishna cannot possibly be perfected in the hearts of fruity workers, karmis, or mental speculators, because such attachment in pure Krishna consciousness is very rare and not possible to achieve even for many liberated persons. So, coming to the level of rati or bhava, it's very, very rare. Okay. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, liberation from material contamination is the stage at which devotional service can be achieved. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nashotvidina kakshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. For a person who simply wants to have liberation and to merge into impersonal Brahmajyoti, attachment to Krishna is not possible to acquire. So he will never come to the stage of rati or bhava. This attachment is very confidentially kept by Krishna and is bestowed only upon pure devotees. Even ordinary devotees cannot have such pure attachment for Krishna. It's ordinary devotees who have mixed intent, who perform their sadhana bhakti with mixed intent for achieving. We have discussed all this in our Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, where they have attachment for material sense objects. They perform bhakti for that particular purpose. So mixed devotees or ordinary devotees who are just performing devotional service but are also cultivating or maintaining their material desires, to them also such pure attachment for Krishna will not manifest. It is possible only by the mercy of pure devotee. Therefore, the first limb of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti itself is Ado Guru Padashraya. Take shelter of a Guru, of a pure devotee of the Lord. And from then on, your process towards Bhava and Prema starts. That's why it's the first limb of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. From there it starts. Association with pure devotees. Taking shelter of Guru, taking Diksha from him, taking instruction from him, following his instruction. Vishrambhena Guru Seva, you have to serve the instruction of the spiritual master. And by that, the mercy of the spiritual master is obtained. It's Krishna's mercy obtained through the acharyas, through the spiritual master, and then one can come to the level of bhava and ultimately to prema. Otherwise, ordinary devotees who are performing devotional service but not the way Srila Rupa Goswami has defined in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, they will not be able to reach the stage of bhava or prema. Right? Okay. Therefore, how is it possible for success to be achieved by persons whose hearts are contaminated by the actions and reactions of fruitive activities and who are entangled by various types of mental speculation? It's not possible. Here the author elaborates on the reason why it is not real rati. How is it possible for rati to appear where there are desires for material enjoyment or liberation? Right? It's ridiculous. No, how is it possible that rati can appear? There is a fault in their sadhana. They do not perform pure bhakti. Pure bhakti means that it should not be mixed with jnana, karma, or other unacceptable elements. It should be very clear. Okay. So then Rupa Goswami, he continues that rati is not available, but there is something called as rati abhas, artificial imitation of Krishna's pastimes. Maybe we can do this tomorrow because we are out of time. It's only 3 minutes more. We can take some questions. And yeah, we have only a couple of topics left in this chapter. And then tomorrow we can discuss Prema, which is a small chapter. And anyway, we will not understand it much, I think. So we can complete it tomorrow. Okay, so I'll stop here. Do you have any questions? Yes, Rubu. Yes. Yes, so we will discuss that. One of the divisions is so apparent faults in bhava. So it's apparent. It looks like there's a fault in a devotee who is on the stage of bhava, but actually it is not a fault. Therefore, it's apparent. It looks like a fault, but it's not a fault. That is what Srila Rupa Goswami will say. We will see that tomorrow. Okay. I think we'll see yes, Prabhu. In the stage of bhava, one will not fall down, but how in the stage of bhava, Bharat Maharaj, he became a deer. Correct? Okay. So, Acharyas explain that in the stage of bhava also, there is still some minute contamination present. Okay. And so therefore, it is in one sense possible to come down from the level of bhava. When we're discussing that from bhava one does not fall down, the stage, the ecstasy itself is so intense that one automatically progress to prema bhakti and manifest these bhavas without doing, or he just has to continue what he's doing now. Okay, but because there's still some minute amount of contamination that is there, so one can come down from bhava bhakti as well. Example is there. So he got attracted to a deer. He has given up all his family, friends, detachment. We discussed this detachment. Gave an example of Bharat Maharaj only. He gave up everything, but then he got attached to the cub. What do you call a cub? Or okay, a baby deer, whatever. And then he came down. But then still, it was temporary. His pauldron was also temporary. Not that he became a gross materialist. Okay, after he left his body, he became a deer. Then he lamented for coming down from the stage. And then at the end of when he left his body, I think that when he left his body as a deer, he was very happy because he was always thinking about the Lord. And he knew that ultimately he will attain Lord. So like this, we have to see. I'll have to see the purport to this particular section, and it's been some time, and also the commentaries of the acharyas. But this is there that in Bhava Bhakti also there is some amount of contamination. One can come down, might be temporary, but in Prema Bhakti there is no contamination whatsoever. It's completely pure. we need not take sufficient guidance from spiritual. Oh, he did not take sufficient guidance from spiritual master. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's there. Correct. So Bharat Maharaj, because he did not take sufficient guidance from spiritual master, he was staying alone. Therefore, he fell down. So till the stage of Bhava and Prema, in fact, even if you attain the stage of Prema, we have to be under the shelter of a devotee only. So that cannot be given up. There is direct connection to Krishna, yes, but direct connection is through his pure devotees. So one cannot give up the shelter of his spiritual master. So yes, that's there. Yes, thank you. Yes. Any other questions you have? Yes, Prabhu. And again, his creation of this material universe is a service to Krishna. Yes. So the question is that although Lord Brahma, after doing his penances, he achieved the level of bhava and he was able to envision the Lord, see the Lord, and see Golok Vrindavan also, but still is engaged in the activities of creation. So this activity of creation is actually his service to the Lord that is performing. But Lord Brahma in this particular universe is accepted as a pure devotee of the Lord. Yes. Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So we'll stop. Srila Prabhupada ki Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki